the complete beginner's guide to Valorant. I assume that most of you guys are watching right now are, new to the game and decided to look up a guide because Valorant is a really complicated and confusing game. But don't worry, our excellent team here at Pro Guides has you guys covered. And by the time you finish watching this video, you're going to be ready to dominate your first game. Whether it's abilities, crosshair placement, shooting, or even the economy. We'll make sure to teach you everything. So don't touch that cursor and stay tuned to the very end. Now, with that being said, we got to jump into the video. But first, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get out my favorite candy right now because look, we got a great video ahead and you got to get my favorite snack. It's time to sit back, come on, relax, and grab some of my favorite candy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that Bunch of Crunch. All right, now we can get this going. Starting things off today, we got to talk about what Valorant is. Okay, so Valorant is a tactical shooter, which means that it emphasizes precise gunplay, tactical thinking, and on-the-fly decision-making. If you haven't already played through Valorant tutorial, now would be a great time to get on that. So how is an actual match of Valorant played? Good question. Well, it's pretty simple. When you join your first game, you will be met by the Agent Select screen. Agents are the different characters you can play in Valorant. Like other characters-based games, every agent has a role and 4 different abilities that are unique to that character. What is very nice about Valorant is that the agent you choose will not affect what guns you can buy or the amount of health you have. It will only affect the abilities you have access to. So games are played on what is called a map. And the maps as of right now are Split, Bind, Haven, and Ascent. Riot has committed towards releasing new maps over the game's lifespan, so depending on, when you are watching this, there might be a lot more than 3 maps in the game. Luckily, it's not going to really have an impact on things we're going to be going over in this video. A map is randomly selected before every game, and is displayed in the top left of Agent Select at the beginning of the game. A game of Valorant is played as a 5-player versus 5-player team format on one of the available maps. Games last until one team wins 13 rounds with a maximum 25 rounds total. During these rounds, the attacker's objective is to plant the spike at one of the sites on the map or to eliminate all enemy players. Defenders have the opposite objective. Their job is to prevent the attackers from planting the spike at one of the sites or to eliminate all enemy players. Teams also swap sides after 12 rounds, so the attackers become the defenders and the defenders become the attackers. Rounds last for 100 seconds or 1 minute 40 seconds. But the round timer will be set to 45 seconds if the spike is planted. When this happens, the attackers have to defend the spike for those 45 seconds from the defenders. The defenders have those 45 seconds to defuse the spike. Defusing the spike is done by holding the 4 key while close to the spike. While you are defusing, you are unable to shoot any weapons or move, but you can still look around with your mouse button. The spike takes 10 seconds to defuse, but after 5 seconds, the spike hits a defuse checkpoint. And if a player stops defusing, they only have to defuse for another 5 seconds instead of just starting over at 10 seconds. So if you defuse for 9 seconds and then get off the defuse, you will have to restart from 5 seconds. I know it's complicated and unfortunately, tactical shooters tend to have high skill floors. But that's why we made this video, guys, is to help all the newer players out there. So don't be afraid to refer back to this video later, as it's going to be pretty hard, trying to absorb all the information at one time. But we believe in you, so keep going. All right, so next up, we're going to be discussing the agents of Valorant a bit more in depth. You guys ready? Right now, there are already 11 agents available to play with, more agents already being confirmed. As these agents release, don't fret because we have and will continue to release full agent guides on every agent in the game. Agents are split up into 4 categories depending on their strengths and weaknesses. These classes are duelists, initiators, sentinels, and controllers. Now, don't be afraid if you don't know what any of these mean, as we're going to be breaking it down for you guys right here and right now. Duelists are the agents whose abilities really focus on getting kills. These agents are normally the least helpful to the team due to their lack of abilities that can actually help the team. So we're going to go more into what utility is later in the video, but for now, you could just think of utility as different abilities that'll help the team. Initiators are the next class of agent. Initiators specialize in getting their team into wherever they need to be, by using their abilities to block lines of sight and take aggressive peeks. Initiators are for people who like to support their team and taking bomb sites and getting picks. They want to help the team succeed rather than just carry by themselves. Next up is the Sentinel class. Okay, This, is the most supportive class of agents. Sentinels' abilities mostly revolve around blocking access to areas of the map and tend to have what are considered the most annoying abilities. Their abilities will stop players in their tracks and force enemies to deal with whatever is preventing them from progressing forward. Lastly, we have controllers. Controller agents tend to control the flow of larger engagements and lead their team to victory through ability usage during fights. This can include, smoking off an important sightline, sneaking past enemy defenses to strike from behind, or simply just deploying toxins that damage an enemy that tries to ignore it. Controllers bend the flow of the round to their will and will usually have the most important abilities that can just block sight and deal area of effect damage. If you want a more in-depth guide for which agent, you should watch our guide on which agent you should main. And there, we covered the individual agents much more in depth and discussed their specific abilities. I can't recommend it enough. Thank you to everybody who stayed this long without, maybe having a full understanding of utility, but don't worry no longer, guys, as we're going to get into what is utility and how you can begin to master it. So before we hop into that, however, we wanted just to let you guys know that now we're offering Valorant coaching on our website, proguides.com. We know how difficult it can be to learn a new game, especially, if you don't know someone who already plays the game. So that's why our amazing coaches are standing by to help give you the tips that you need to improve. If that isn't something that you're into, no worries. We also just launched a Discord server for you guys as well. So you got to come out and hang and chat with our community, get exclusive tips and tricks to help you guys improve, and best of all, get access to Discord-only events like giveaways and organized training matches. You guys got to join right now with the link in the description. All right, so with that settled, let's get back into talking about utility. Here we go. When you hear someone refer to utility, what they are actually talking about are agents' abilities. However, not all abilities are utility. Try to stay with me here, all right? Utility specifically refers to agent abilities that help the team in some sort of way. Smokes are the most common form of utility in Valorant, right? As multiple characters have their own version of smokes. Smokes are almost always used to block vision for the enemy team, but act differently depending on which agent deployed them. We won't be going into specifics right now about, the minor differences between smokes and Valorant, but you should know that not all smokes are created equal. Another popular form of utility in Valorant are flashes or flashbangs. So flashes, guys, are, abilities that prevent vision to an enemy. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, right? Don't smokes already do that? You would be forgiven for thinking that, but flashes actually act in a very different way. Flashes in Valorant are normally some sort of projectile that, when detonated, will blind enemies. That means the enemy's entire screen will literally turn orange and just show no detail. However, enemies will still be able to hear for the most part. The length being blinded lasts depending on the agent that flashed you. When encountered with the flash, the best thing you can do is actually just turn away from it. If you're not looking at a flash directly, it will drastically reduce the amount of time you're blinded for. With one exception being Omen's flash, but you don't need to worry about that right now. If you're wondering why these are called flashes or flashbangs, it's actually because of a little indie game called Counter-Strike: Global Offensive. In that game, flashbangs act like their real-life counterpart. Being an actual grenade you have to throw into a room to blind anyone looking at it. But what isn't considered utility? Good question. An example of an ability that would not be considered utility is something like Jett's Tailwind. Jett is a duelist class agent who has some pretty cool abilities, but unfortunately almost no utility, right? Jett's Tailwind reads as follows: instantly propel Jett in the direction she's moving. This isn't considered utility because that ability does not help the team in any way. It's purely a movement ability for Jett. However, Jett's Cloud Burst is considered utility. The ability reads as follows: instantly throw a projectile that expands into a brief vision blocking cloud on impact with a surface. This is considered utility because the projectile acts like a smoke, blocking vision even if it's only for a short while. By now, we hope, guys, that you have at least a basic understanding of what Valorant is about and how it's played. Next, we're going to be discussing the different weapons of Valorant and some of the similarities and differences, shared by each of the guns. So before you can even get a gun, you got to open the buy menu first, with B by default when in game. We're going to discuss how money and economy works a bit later in the video, so don't worry if you don't understand why all the guns have different prices. There are 6 different gun classes in Valorant, all right? These are the sidearm, shotguns, SMGs, rifles, and heavy weapons. In Valorant, you only have 3 weapon slots, and only 2 that you can actually get weapons for in-game. The first slot is your knife. You will always have access to your knife in Valorant to try and get the drop on your enemy if all else fails. Next up is your sidearm. You will start every single round with a classic in this slot unless you have a better sidearm equipped. If you buy any of the weapons under the sidearm section in the buy menu, they will replace the classic. The third and final slot is for primary weapons. Any weapon purchase except from the sidearm category will appear in this slot. If you already have a weapon in the first slot and purchase a new primary weapon, the old one will fall to the ground and will be able to be picked up by teammates or enemies alike. Once you have chosen a weapon you like, it's time to learn how to shoot it properly. Most weapons in Valorant are automatic, which means you can fire them until they run out by just holding down mouse 1. However, in order for your bullets to actually hit their target, there's a bit more to it than just lining up your crosshair and shooting. The first thing that is important to realize is to use your crosshair as a guide, not as a perfect lineup. You know, when a gun is fired in Valorant, the bullets tend to recoil up, to the left, and right. To counter this movement of the bullets, you have to pull your aim in the opposite direction the bullets will move. This is called spray control. So if the bullets start moving above your crosshair, pull your crosshair down. If the bullets start moving to the left, move your crosshair to the right, and so on. A large part of Valorant's skill ceiling comes from being able to apply this simple to understand thing, but nearly impossible to master technique in every gunfight. However, as mentioned, it is pretty easy to start training. Just head into this shooting range and try shooting around a bit. Use the large bullseye to the right to really practice your spray control. Try shooting a few bullets at a time and just see if you can just get all of them to land in roughly the same place. Once you get the hang of a few bullets, keep adding more and more bullets to each spray. So guys, be sure to also check out our guide on how to improve your accuracy in Valorant in the top left corner right now for some more tips to help you guys improve even faster. Now, spray control is all well and good, right? But if you're a gifted aimer, you might find our next tip a bit more useful. Okay, a very important part of aiming in Valorant is something called crosshair placement. Now, if you've ever played a shooting game before, I'm sure you guys already know that rant we're about to get into, but for anyone less familiar with shooters, crosshair placement is the understanding of where you should be keeping your crosshairs so that it practically lands on an enemy's head when you come into contact with the enemy. Headshots are, super important in Valorant because they allow you to kill an opponent very quickly. Most weapons can kill in just 1 or 2 headshots while requiring double or even triple that in body counts. Killing your opponent as fast as you can should always be something to strive for, as the quicker you kill them, the less chance they have to damage or even kill you. If you watch any pro streams, man, you're gonna see that most of the time, everyone in the server is just popping each other in the head because it's just the most effective way to take down an enemy. Now, back to crosshair placement, all right? Here we go. In order to take down an enemy fast, you should have moved your crosshair as little as possible because the more distance between your crosshair and someone's body or head, the more time it takes to get your crosshair on target. One really common mistake that a lot of newer players make is to keep their crosshair way too low. Remember, the ground can't shoot back. Only the enemies can, all right? Keeping your crosshair up and roughly at around body or head level will instantly give you an advantage over players who don't practice good crosshair placement. An easy way to test if your crosshair is too low or too high is to use your teammates as a reference. Try to line up your crosshair with their head or chest at the beginning of a round, and then just see if you could just keep it at a roughly the same elevation. Of course, if you are in an elevated position or you're attacking an elevated position, you will need to change where you keep your crosshair because people will be at a different height than you. We know crosshair placement can be confusing trying to get your head around, so try to just remember to keep your crosshair where you think enemies could be. Alright, I finally think it's time to talk about the economy of Valorant. And no, you can't trade stocks through the game. The economy of Valorant is a mechanic that most shooter games forgot. However, Valorant sees an excellent opportunity for increasing the skill ceiling instead. Throughout a match of Valorant, players will earn money or credits for completing different tasks. Killing an enemy, winning a round, losing a round, and planting the spike are just some of the things that can earn you money in Valorant. Once you have collected enough money, you can spend it on the different weapons, shields or abilities for your agent for that round. Weapons tend to cost the most, while shields and abilities tend to cost pretty low amounts. Since the amount of money you get depends on whether or not you won the previous round, winning quite a few rounds in a row will allow you to rack up quite the bank balance. Currently, the max amount of money that you can have stored at once is 9,000, so any money you earn beyond that simply won't be counted. However, no worries if you already have everything you need and 9,000 credits. You can actually help teammates buy weapons. By opening the buy menu, you can take a look at your teammates and actually see if any of them are requesting a weapon. Requesting weapons can be done by right-clicking on a weapon in the buy menu. When someone requests a weapon, it allows all the other teammates on your team to spend their credits to buy that person a weapon. So, whenever you have some extra credits, try to offer to buy someone else a weapon if you see that they can afford a good one. At the same time, if you're running low on funds and you have a teammate with a lot of money banked up, try to ask and just see if they'll buy you a weapon. Another important part of economy to keep in mind, though, is how spending money one round will impact what guns you can buy in later rounds. When talking about the economy, people like to split rounds up into 3 categories. There are save rounds in which your team buys little or no equipment to save money to buy much better weapons next round. There are half buy, or sometimes called forced buy rounds, where the team will either buy upgraded pistols or SMGs in an effort to not spend a lot of money since they still want to save some for the next round, but still have enough to not be forced into a save round. Finally, we have full buy rounds. So these are the rounds where everyone tries to pick up a rifle or a heavy weapon and all their abilities and shields. These are mainly the rounds where you see a big focus on strategy and ability usage and high-level play. This is because on full buy rounds, you have access to all or most of your tools, and high elo players know how to leverage those tools in their favor. Something to keep in mind when dealing with the economy in an actual game is to make sure you are buying or saving with your team. While you might have a lot of credits saved up, maybe your teammates are all broke. And in a situation like that, try to avoid buying expensive weapons and instead save your money for the next round when all your teammates can buy, or if you're a very nice person, offer to buy everyone SMGs or sidearms. If you can buy an expensive weapon when your teammates can't, you're probably just going to end up dying with that weapon anyways, since you don't have any teammates to help support you in a gunfight, because they are still stuck with the classic. On the other side, if everyone on your team can full buy, but can't, try to spend as much money as you can and just get the best weapon possible. You can also request a weapon, and if your teammates have enough money, they might end up buying a gun for you. If you don't know how to request a weapon, don't worry, because all you gotta do is just right click on your desired weapon. But first, let's talk about shields real quick. Okay, so shields in Valorant are split into 2 different versions: light shields and heavy shields. Both sets of shields absorb 2/3 of all damage taken. The difference in the two comes down to how long each lasts. Light shields clocks in at 400 credits and can absorb 25 points of damage before breaking. You tend to want to buy light shields on save or half buy rounds. For full buy rounds, try out the heavy shields. Heavy shields clock in at 1,000 credits, but can absorb 50 points of damage before breaking. You know, what is nice about shields is that it can actually carry over into the next round if it doesn't break. Actually, everything that you can buy in the buy menu will transfer into the next round as long as you don't die with it. So any unbroken shields, equipped weapons, or unused abilities will magically just transfer into the next round without you having to rebuy them. This is why, guys, you might sometimes hear people in your games asking someone to pick up a better weapon before the round ends. It's so that they will have the better weapon for the next round. So it is advisable to always try and rebuy shields if you have the money for it. However, since both light and heavy shields can break so quickly, you always are going to want to be replenishing it when you can. An interesting positive thing of the economy in Valorant is how unused agent abilities transfer into the next round. Normally, if you die in Valorant, you lose everything you bought, including weapon and shields. However, unused abilities will actually transfer between deaths. So if you get caught out of position or about to die, maybe don't try to panic use abilities. Instead, think about whether or not your abilities can actually get you out of a sticky situation you are in. If they can't, then try not to use your abilities so you can just at least have them for the next round and don't have to spend extra money to buy them again. By now, guys, we hope that you're getting more and more familiar with Valorant and how the game should be played, all right? We've been talking about strategies and tactics all video long, so why don't we dive into some simple yet effective ones for you to master? Probably the most important tactic of all is communication. Valorant is a team-based game, which means that you won't be able to get far on your own. If you don't already own a headset with a microphone, we highly recommend picking one up. Microphones are pretty cheap nowadays, so it shouldn't be a huge hit for your wallet. Now that you have a working mic, let's put it to use. Some really good information that you might want to be communicating with your team is how many which agents you see. Keep track of enemy agents and the location is a huge advantage because it allows you to come up with strategies that play around enemy agents. If you are planning to push a hallway, it's probably a good thing to know if the last 5 rounds there has been an enemy agent that can prevent you from easily moving through the hallway, like Sage or Brimstone, for instance. Calling out to your team how many agents you see or hear also helps your teammates make decisions. If you notice that you hear 4 enemy agents running around close to you, relay that information to your teammate, with the spike. Lets them know that where you are is pretty dangerous and they probably shouldn't take that spike to you. A team communicating will always have the advantage over a team that refuses to talk to each other. Now you will always get those bad eggs in solo queue matches, but luckily Valorant has a pretty easy way to access block features. So don't be afraid to mute or block anyone who is toxic or is just obviously just trying to get on your nerves. All right, guys, once again, this is your motivation guy. That's right, your friend, the one and only Keith Allen. To everyone who stayed to the end of the video, thank you so much. We know Valorant can be a difficult game to get into and seemingly impossible to master, right? But we do have your back. Don't forget, we have a ton of guides, tips, and tricks on this channel for all skill types. So consider subscribing, guys. We post daily videos on how you can improve at this amazing game. All right, guys, that's it for me. We'll see you later. Peace.
Freak out, I've got to see